Nearly 2 centuries before Daenerys Targaryen ever stepped into the fire, House Targaryen stood at the absolute peak of its power. Dragons ruled the skies, fear ruled the kingdoms, and no family on earth was richer, stronger, or more untouchable. This is the story of how that power destroyed itself from within. The story begins in the year 101 AC, when King Viserys Targaryen, known as the Conciliator, faces a succession crisis. His heirs are dead, and to avoid war, he summons the Great Council of Harrenhal. Lords from across Westeros gather to decide who should inherit the Iron Throne. The final choice comes down to Princess Rhaenys, the king's eldest descendant through a female line, and Prince Viserys, a male heir from a younger branch. Despite Rhaenys having a stronger claim by blood, the lords choose Viserys simply because he is a man. This single decision plants the seed that will one day destroy the Targaryen dynasty. Years later, Viserys I rules as king. He is peaceful, kind, and deeply weak. His greatest desire is to keep the realm united, but his inability to make hard decisions slowly pushes the kingdom toward disaster. His wife, Queen Aemma Arryn, suffers multiple miscarriages, and Viserys becomes obsessed with producing a male heir. When Aemma goes into a dangerous labor, Viserys is forced to choose between saving her or the baby. He chooses the child. Both die. This moment haunts Viserys forever. With no sons left, Viserys does something unprecedented. He names his daughter Rhaenyra Targaryen as his heir. Lords swear oaths to support her succession. Rhaenyra becomes the realm's delight, a dragon rider raised to believe she will one day rule. But everything changes when Viserys remarries. His new wife is Alicent Hightower, daughter of Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King. Alicent is young, dutiful, and deeply controlled by her father, who sees the throne as something to be won, not protected. When Alicent gives birth to a son, Aegon, the entire realm quietly assumes the old rules will return. A male heir always comes first, but Viserys refuses to change his mind. Rhaenyra remains his chosen successor. As years pass, resentment grows. Rhaenyra marries Lenor Valerian, a political match meant to unite powerful houses. But the marriage is loveless, and Rhaenyra bears 3 sons who clearly do not resemble their supposed father. Everyone knows the truth, but saying it aloud is treason. Alicent and her children see this as proof that Rhaenyra is unfit to rule. The court splits into factions: the Blacks, who support Rhaenyra, and the Greens, who back Alicent and her sons. Friendship turns into hatred. Rhaenyra and Alicent, once inseparable, now see each other as enemies. Their children inherit the feud. Tension explodes when Aemond Targaryen, Alicent's second son, loses an eye during a fight with Rhaenyra's children. Instead of punishing anyone, Viserys demands peace, but peace enforced by denial only deepens the wounds. Years later, Viserys grows sick and fragile. The kingdom waits for his death like a ticking bomb. When the king finally dies, Alicent and Otto act immediately. They hide Viserys' death from the public. They lock down the Red Keep. They move to crown Aegon II as king before Rhaenyra even knows her father is gone. Aegon does not want to rule. He is cruel, reckless, and uninterested in responsibility. But Alicent convinces herself that Viserys changed his mind on his deathbed and wanted Aegon to succeed him. Whether this is a misunderstanding or a lie doesn't matter. The Greens move forward. Aegon is crowned in secret. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra is on Dragonstone. When she learns of her father's death and her brother's coronation, she goes into labor from the shock. The birth is brutal and ends with a stillborn child. Fueled by grief and rage, Rhaenyra claims the throne for herself. She is crowned Queen of the 7 Kingdoms by those still loyal to her. The dance of the dragons has begun. Both sides scramble for allies. Blood follows blood. Rhaenyra orders vengeance. Assassins known as Blood and Cheese infiltrate the Red Keep and murder Aegon's young son in front of his mother. Innocence is gone forever. As the war spreads, dragons burn castles, armies clash, and civilians suffer. No side remains righteous. Rhaenyra loses supporters due to harsh decisions and paranoia. Aegon becomes increasingly violent and unstable. The realm fractures under the weight of dragonfire. Eventually, Rhaenyra captures King's Landing. She finally sits on the Iron Throne she fought her entire life to claim. But ruling is harder than conquering. The city hates her. Gold is gone. Dragons are dying. Fear turns the people against her. Riots erupt. The dragon pit is stormed. Dragons are slaughtered by mobs. The Age of Dragons begins to end. Rhaenyra flees the city, betrayed by nearly everyone she trusted. She seeks refuge on Dragonstone, unaware that Aegon has beaten her there. In the final cruel twist of fate, Rhaenyra is captured. Aegon feeds her to his dragon, Sunfire, while her son watches. Even after the war officially ends, Westeros does not heal. What follows is not peace, but silence, the kind that settles after a catastrophe, when no one is left to celebrate victory. Entire bloodlines are gone. Great houses that once shaped the realm are reduced to empty castles and forgotten banners. The countryside is littered with burned villages, mass graves, and fields that will not yield crops for years. The Dance of the Dragons did not just kill people, it hollowed out the kingdom. Aegon III ascends the Iron Throne as a child, but the crown he inherits is stripped of power. There are no dragons left to enforce royal will. The aura of invincibility that once surrounded House Targaryen has evaporated. Lords no longer fear dragonfire, they fear instability, and instability breeds defiance. The monarchy survives, but it is forever weakened. Aegon III himself becomes a living symbol of the war's cost. Known as the Dragonbane, he does not earn the name through action, but through trauma. As a boy, he watched his mother die screaming in dragonfire. Dragons are not symbols of glory to him, they are monsters. Under his reign, no effort is made to preserve them. When the last sickly dragons die in captivity, there is no mourning, only relief. Politically, the war reshapes power forever. House Velaryon, once richer than the Lannisters and dominant at sea, never fully recovers. Corlys Velaryon survives the war but outlives nearly everyone he loves. His ambition, which once carried his house to unimaginable heights, ultimately costs him his legacy. The seas remain important, but naval power alone cannot replace dragons. House Hightower, despite backing the winning side in the end, also fades from dominance. Their manipulation of succession exposes them as kingmakers rather than loyal servants. Other houses take note. Trust in Old Town diminishes. Faith in institutions collapses. Even the faith of the Seven emerges damaged. During the storming of the Dragon Pit, religious fervor turns into mob violence, and the image of holy men encouraging the slaughter of dragons stains the faith's moral authority. The people begin to realize that gods, like kings, can be questioned and ignored. The most haunting legacy of the dance is not political, it is psychological. Generations grow up hearing stories of fire raining from the sky, of siblings killing siblings, of mothers sacrificing children for crowns. The idea of absolute power becomes synonymous with absolute destruction. Westeros becomes more cynical, more cautious, and more fractured. House of the Dragon succeeds because it reframes the fantasy genre. This is not a story of heroes and villains. It is a tragedy where every character believes they are right, and every one of them is wrong. Rhaenyra believes she is defending her birthright. Alicent believes she is protecting her children. Daemon believes fear brings order. Otto believes manipulation ensures stability. Each choice makes sense in isolation. Together, they doom the realm. The Iron Throne itself becomes the ultimate symbol of failure. Forged from the swords of defeated enemies, it was meant to represent unity through conquest. Instead, it becomes a chair that cuts those who sit on it. Every ruler bleeds for it. By the end of the dance, the throne no longer commands respect, it demands sacrifice. The tragedy is that the war was never inevitable. A single compromise, a single act of restraint could have prevented everything. But the Targaryens are trapped by their own mythology. They believe they are chosen, superior, destined. That belief blinds them. Dragons make them powerful, but also arrogant. When the dragons die, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. In the end, no one truly wins the Dance of the Dragons. The Greens lose their king, the Blacks lose their queen, the small folk lose everything, and the Targaryens lose what made them exceptional. House of the Dragon is not just a prequel, it is a warning. It shows how easily power becomes obsession, how legacy can turn into a curse, and how even the mightiest empire can collapse from within. Long before the Mad King burned his enemies, long before Robert's rebellion, the Targaryens had already sealed their fate. The dragons didn't disappear because of magic fading. They disappeared because the people who controlled them destroyed themselves. And that is the real story of the dance. Another quiet casualty of the dance is the idea of succession itself. Before this war, inheritance in Westeros, while imperfect, carried an assumption of legitimacy. The dance shatters that illusion. From this point forward, every succession crisis is haunted by the memory of what happens when claims are disputed. Lords begin preparing for war the moment a king shows weakness. Alliances are no longer ceremonial. They are preemptive strikes against uncertainty. The throne becomes something to guard, not inherit. The nobility learns the wrong lesson. Instead of realizing that compromise prevents destruction, they conclude that hesitation is fatal. Future rulers rule faster, harder, and more brutally, believing mercy invites rebellion. This mindset directly shapes later tyrants. When kings like Maegor the Cruel or Aerys II are remembered, their cruelty is often framed as madness, but the cultural soil that allowed them to rule was fertilized during the dance. Fear became governance. The small folk, meanwhile, undergo a transformation that history books rarely record. For centuries, dragons were distant symbols, rarely seen, whispered about like gods. The dance brings dragons into villages, fields, and streets. Farmers watch skies instead of crops. Children grow up associating thunder not with storms, but with wings. After the war, even when dragons are gone, the fear remains. It changes how people respond to power. Loyalty becomes conditional. Reverence becomes skepticism. This shift explains why later rebellions spread faster than expected. When Robert Baratheon rises against the Mad King, the realm does not rally to protect the Targaryens. It remembers. Not specific names or dates, but the truth that dragon lords once tore the world apart for pride. That memory weakens loyalty more than any army. Daemon Targaryen's legacy is particularly corrosive. Though remembered by some as a rogue hero, his methods normalize political violence within the royal family. Assassination, intimidation, and terror become acceptable tools for maintaining order. Future generations romanticize his boldness while ignoring the damage he caused. In many ways, Daemon becomes the prototype for destructive charisma, a man whose confidence masks the chaos he leaves behind. Rhaenyra's legacy is even more tragic. History remembers her as a failed queen, a usurper, or a footnote between male rulers. But the truth is darker. She is proof that being right does not matter if power is contested. Her claim is legitimate. Her downfall comes not from incompetence alone, but from being trapped in a system that cannot accept her without tearing itself apart. Her story becomes a cautionary tale, not about women ruling, but about how societies weaponize tradition to justify violence. Alicent Hightower's end is quieter, but equally devastating. She survives the war only to live surrounded by the consequences of her choices. Every child she fought to protect is gone or broken. The crown she secured brings no comfort. Her fate underlines one of the dance's cruelest truths. Winning politically does not mean surviving emotionally. She becomes a relic of a conflict she helped ignite, forced to watch history judge her in silence. The extinction of dragons also alters warfare permanently. Without overwhelming aerial dominance, wars return to attrition. Sieges lengthen, casualties rise, battles become slower, bloodier, and more personal. Knights matter again, castles regain relevance. Ironically, the end of dragons does not make war kinder, it makes it more grinding. The myth that dragons caused violence collapses. They merely concentrated on it. This is why House of the Dragon feels so heavy compared to later Westerosi stories. It shows the moment when magic dies not with wonder, but with bureaucracy, fear, and poor decisions. Dragons don't vanish in a blaze of glory. They fade, sick, chained, misunderstood. Their deaths mirror the decay of the family that once mastered them. The Iron Throne remains, but it loses its meaning. What was once a symbol of conquest becomes a reminder of division. Every ruler who sits on it after the dance is ruling a diminished idea. The throne is no longer feared because of power. It is feared because of history. It becomes a curse rather than a prize. Perhaps the most haunting element of the dance is how preventable it all was. No prophecy demanded it. No external enemy forced it. The war erupts entirely from human flaws. Ego, fear, pride, and the refusal to back down. That is what makes it resonate. Dragons may be fantasy, but the reasons they die are painfully real. House of the Dragon ultimately argues that empires do not fall when enemies attack. They fall when families turn inward and mistake dominance for destiny. The Targaryens believed fire made them special. In the end, fire only made their collapse louder. And long after the ashes settle, Westeros continues, poorer, colder, and more suspicious of anyone who claims to rule by birthright alone. The war does not end there. Aegon himself is soon poisoned by his own allies. The dance leaves the Targaryen dynasty shattered. Nearly all dragons are dead. Thousands are gone. The throne passes to Rhaenyra's surviving son, Aegon III, a broken child king who grows up hating dragons. House of the Dragon is not a story about heroes or villains. It is a story about pride, legacy, and the cost of power. The Targaryens did not lose their throne to outsiders. They burned it down themselves. And from the ashes of their civil war, the long decline of the dragons truly begins.